Hello folks, this is Sullla once again, giving you a recap of the quarterfinals for IEM Hannover and the two matches that were played today. In those two matches, just to give you a quick overview, in the first one, Counter Logic Gaming defeated Curse 2-0, and in the second one, Against All Authority defeated SK Gaming 2-1. So they were both best of threes, and we had 5 total matches today. Alright, so to give a little bit more information on these. Now, I didn't see the games live. I was not willing to get up early enough to see these games as they happen live, but I did watch the rebroadcast when they came on today, and that's why this is going up a little bit later than some of the other recaps that I did for you. Pretty interesting games today. I don't think that there were any really exceptionally interesting games, but they were pretty solid games, pretty interesting stuff. I'll start with the first series between Counter Logic Gaming, that is CLG, and Curse. This was the two American teams that were in the quarterfinals. Kind of an interesting setup just because Elementz, who is now the support player for Curse, was of course the longtime support player for CLG, and they were playing one another, which was kind of funny. They didn't really talk about that too much in the interviews, but I'm sure that they were thinking about that. But didn't work out for Elementz today since Curse did lose both matches against CLG. Anyway, things that I noticed in the first match, biggest issue in the first match was, first of all, Curse left Shen to be in the pool, and Shen was first picked by CLG, which was kind of a questionable choice. Again, Shen has been proven to be really strong in this tournament. If you look at the overall results for Shen, I think he's only around 50% win rate, but despite that fact, Shen has really felt like a strong champion. Even in the games that Shen is losing, Shen has been really, really strong. So he's just really been probably the strongest champion in the field in this game, even if his win-loss record doesn't necessarily reflect that. And Shen, I believe, has been more banned than any other champ. So anyway, Curse did leave Shen in the pool, and it was first picked by CLG, so that was a really big mistake right there. The other issue was it looked as though Curse was expecting Shen to be played as a jungler, because in previous matches when CLG was able to grab Shen, they had saintvicious play him as a jungler. But in this game, CLG actually had Hotshot play Shen in top lane, which is kind of interesting because I've never seen Hotshot actually play Shen, not in any kind of competitive play event. But it did work out quite well for them, and it proved to be really strong for CLG in this match. So first issue in that game was letting CLG pick Shen. Then the second issue in this game was, in this game, Curse was running Caitlyn on their AD player Cop, and Doublelift was playing Vayne, which is probably his best champ. Now, for anyone who's familiar with that matchup, Caitlyn should really dominate the laning phase against Vayne. Vayne is a relatively weak laner, and Caitlyn, with all that extra range, should just dominate in the early game in the laning phase. And yet, for some reason, Doublelift was actually out farming Cop in lanes. His Vayne was out farming their Caitlyn. And that just should not happen in this game. So the fact that Doublelift was actually out farming Cop was just a huge issue. If you're going to pick Caitlyn, you need to dominate the laning phase. It's kind of like picking Urgot. You really need to have lane control, and when they didn't have that, that's a really serious issue. Then finally, the other really big play in the match was CLG was able to sneak a Baron around the 21-minute mark with just 2 champions. They had saintvicious playing Udyr, and he had a Wriggles Lantern. I believe he had a Wriggles Lantern. He had either Wriggles or Wit's End. And then along with Hotshot playing as Shen, Hotshot just had a Sunfire cape. And so the two of them went. They had cleared all of Curse's wards there, and the two of them just sat there and did Baron. It took them about 30 to 35 seconds to do it, but Curse had no vision on it, and the two of them just slowly killed Baron, and then took it in just a complete surprise. So that was probably the play of that match. So they snuck a Baron, they were already ahead, and then Hotshot just started doing this Shen split push, just split push all day, force Curse into bad fights, and from there they really just kind of steamrolled. So yeah, that was a pretty easy win for CLG. They were pretty dominant in that game. It wasn't really that close. It was really just carried by saintvicious, jiji in their AP mid player, and then Hotshot in top lane. So then on into the second game. In the second game, Curse had first pick, so CLG immediately did ban Shen. Just they wanted to keep Shen out of the pool for that game because they did not have first pick. CLG also did something really nice with their bans. They banned Kog'Maw in both games because they saw how dominant Cop for Curse had been with Kog'Maw in previous games. So they just took him out, took Kog'Maw out of the pool, and Cop definitely did not look as comfortable on some of the other champs. So this is a thing, of course, in tournament play. If somebody's really dominant with one champ, you just start banning them out. Anyway, in this game, CLG ended up breaking out Mundo and Zilean with their first 2 picks, which is kind of funny, but saintvicious has really been liking Jungle Mundo, and he hasn't been the only one playing it in this tournament. This tournament has really been a breakout for Jungle Mundo, at least in competitive play. He's been played in solo queue a lot, but never really in tournaments, at least not as a jungler. and he's really been quite successful in this tournament overall. Then as far as Zilean goes, that's something that Big Fat Jiji is quite known for playing. He's very strong as a Zilean player, but it was just interesting to see them break that out. And then in bottom lane, CLG ended up playing Ezreal Janna against the Trist Alistar of Curse. So they went with a very safe lane. Ezreal Janna is about as safe as you can get against Trist Alistar, and that seemed to work out pretty well, just managed to keep them safe. Anyway, in this game, really the key plays that I thought in this game were CLG, saintvicious playing Mundo, able to steal blue multiple times in the early game. He kept stealing blue buff away from Curse. Nijaki was playing as Veigar in that game, so they were able to get Gigi's Zilean like a blue buff over and over again. They're keeping Zilean sort of permanently blue buffed, whereas Veigar on Team Curse did not get his blue for like the first 15 minutes of the game, and that was really key because that permanent blue buff allowed Big Fat Jiji playing Zilean to just speed himself up, run all over the map. He could push his lane with time bombs, then go to other lanes and gank, and he was able to go top and get some kills on a number of occasions. Anyway, this game was definitely closer. It was there was some good back and forth action. Curse actually won one nice team fight in mid game, and it looked like they had a success, but COG did this really awesome Baron defense. They actually won a 3v5. They defended their inhib 3v5, and I don't even know how they did that, but they pulled it off somehow. Managed to defend their inhib 3v5, killed 3 members of Curse and took Baron, and then from that point on, it was kind of a snowball. So again, really impressive stuff from Mundo, Zilean, and Ezreal in that fight. So CLG basically won this game off of a really great engage. They went 3-0 and pushed to win from there. So again, really, in this series, like I said, the first game came down to failure to ban Shen, ability of Vayne to outfarm Caitlyn, and then the ability to sneak that early Baron. Like I said, the second game was closer, but CLG just did a great job of having Saintvicious' Mundo just run into the middle of Team Curse and just soak up just huge amounts of damage. Like, this is a term that you hear sometimes. Saintvicious just basically playing Mundo as a soak to soak up as much damage as possible. He'd pop his ult, he'd get a Zilean ult when he got low, and he just basically soaked up a ton of damage as a tank. And Curse didn't quite seem to know how to play against that Mundo-Zilean combination. The other thing is when Mundo pops his ult and Zilean speeds him up, he runs really fast, and that seemed to be working pretty well for them. But yeah, 2-0 win for CLG, looked very strong in those games. Now, I want to cover the other semifinal. This was between Against All Authority. They did end up defeating SK Gaming 2-1. These are 2 European teams. Against All Authority is a French team. SK is made up of people from a couple different European countries. So anyway, in this game, I'll start with the first game. In that game, we had Kog'Maw and Sona for SK against Corki and Leona for Against All Authority. One of the interesting things about this series was AAA Against All Authority, they were playing Corki Leona in every game, and it seemed to work pretty well for them. It's just sort of an unorthodox pairing. Corki's been getting a ton of play in this tournament, and Against All Authority really seems to like that Leona pick, and it's been working pretty well for them. Once again, Jungle Mundo was in this game as well, Against All Authority also running Jungle Mundo and having a lot of success with it, stealing an early enemy blue buff, giving Carthage, they were running Carthage in that game, giving him an edge against the Gallia that SK Gaming was running. So anyway, game was relatively even early on, but Against All Authority got some great initiations from Leona in bottom lane, got them a couple kills on Sona, got them the first dragon. SK actually won the second dragon fight, but it was actually a 5-3 fight in terms of kills, with SK coming out on top, but so many people died on both teams that no one took dragon, and then when they all revived and went back to dragon, Against All Authority won the repeat fight 2-0, took dragon, and from there they really just snowballed out of there. In that game, it was, like I said, it was really Leona's use of crowd control. It had great Leona initiations, really something surprising. And then they were also able to use Wukong, something you don't see very often. Very rarely see Wukong played in tournament play, but Against All Authority was running Wukong in top lane, and he just had a great game, got some early kills, and they were doing a lot of stuff like Leona use her ultimate, and then Wukong jump into the middle of the enemy team, pop his ult, get the knockup. Then Karthus would run in, doing his area of effect damage, and then Corki would just be firing missiles away. So they ended up with Wukong 6-2, Karthus 7-2, and Corki 7-1. And again, the use of Wukong knockup and Leona's various crowd control stuff just seemed to give them the edge in that game. So yes, Leona getting played in tournaments. Who would have thought it? But getting played in tournaments and pretty effective. Now, Game 2 between Against All Authority and SK. SK had to win or else get eliminated. This was quite an interesting game. This might be the match of the day, just because it was the one that had the most back and forth. Anyway, Against All Authority was able to first pick Shen. Again, really shouldn't have been able to get first pick on Shen, but SK did not ban Shen, and Against All Authority had first pick. So once again, they're running Leona Quirky in bottom lane, and it seemed to be working quite well. But a really bizarre choice by Against All Authority. They chose to grab Malzahar as their AP mid, and now Malz doesn't get played very much in competitive play just because it's really easy to counterpick around him. And so SK was basically like, okay, great, thanks for grabbing Malzahar, and then they went and took Cassiopeia with the last pick. And Ocelot, the AP mid for SK Gaming, seemed very happy to be able to get Cassiopeia with the last pick. So anyway, Against All Authority, once again, able to get out to a big lead. They were able to just really dominate. They had Maokai as their jungler, who initiated on some great kills. That Leona Quirky pairing was just absolutely abusing the Janna support that SK was running. They managed to kill Janna 3 different times in lane, just with Leona initiating and then using all her crowd control, and then Quirky Valkyrieing in, using his Gatling gun, his phosphor bombs, etc. So they were way ahead in this game. They actually were ahead 14-5 in kills. They were 8,000 gold ahead, and Against All Authority had this game just in the bag. Like, this game was over. However, they tried to force a Baron fight. And it wasn't a bad Baron fight to force either. They had actually picked off the jungler for SK. They actually killed the jungler for SK. So they were forcing Baron, and like all they had to do was stay on the Baron, and they would have gotten it because they had a smite and SK didn't. But for some reason, they all dove over the wall to try and kill Cassiopeia instead of just killing Baron. Like I said, they had smite and SK didn't because their jungler was dead, and they just completely botched the fight. They failed to kill Cassiopeia. Ocelot playing Cassiopeia had a Quicksilver sash. He Quicksilvered and then flashed away. And when they did that, they left their squishy heroes wide open to get attacked by SK. So they ended up dying 0-3 and gave the Baron to SK. That got them back into the game. And then you think, okay, well, SK's back in the game from here. But no, AAA actually won another Baron fight 3-1. They had an incredibly easy Baron to get. And again, once again, they just totally bungled the Baron. Candy Panda playing Graves ran in there and killed the Baron with his ultimate. And it was just another Baron that SK had zero business taking. So only one true Baron steal, but Against All Authority had 2 incredibly easy Barons to get, and they just botched it horribly. And then SK from there, after stealing another Baron, was able to snowball and win from there. But really, this game was just dominated by Against All Authority, and they just horribly messed up 2 Baron fights that ended up swinging the game and letting SK take it. Each Baron is worth 1,500 gold, so it's a 3,000 gold difference when you consider either team can get it. So that was 6k gold difference when SK was able to take 2 Barons that they shouldn't have. So, I mean, kind of an interesting game to watch, but in a way, almost not a good game to watch, because the only reason the game swung and reversed is because it was more about Against All Authority messing up than SK really making great plays. Now, maybe other people would disagree, but I didn't think SK did anything that great. It just felt like Against All Authority just really threw this one horribly. I mean, maybe it's amusing to watch just for that, but SK really had no business winning that game. Now, in the final game, again, came down to best of 3, so it came down to the last game. In this game, some interesting picks from Against All Authority. Once again, they went with Quirky Leona against Graves Janna, so the same bottom lane as before. But Against All Authority ended up with some different picks for their APs. They ran Kennen in top, not that surprising. They were running Kennen in top against Renekton for SK Gaming, and the Renekton pick a little strange for SK. And then they chose to run Fizz against Cassiopeia for SK. So yeah, Fizz in mid. I was sort of like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. Anyway, this game was very passive in the early going. Both teams didn't want to make a mistake because it was lose and go home at this point in time. And really nothing happened for the first 20 minutes. And right around when things were about to start happening, the stream I was watching cut out and just stopped. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch the exciting part, but I was able to see the final score screen. And apparently after about the 20-minute mark, Against All Authority just started crushing SK. They actually finished 16-1 in kills overall. It was just a stomp after like the 20-minute mark. And according to the write-up that I read, it was just awesome Leona initiates, and then Kennen area of effect damage, and then Fizz getting in some really nice fish stuff with his ultimate. So again, a game that was close early and then apparently snowballed super hard, but I just didn't get a chance to see it. So anyway, Against All Authority, definitely the better team. They really should have just won this one 2-0. It should not have gone to a third game. SK, I mean, they weren't terrible, but they were definitely outplayed. And I was just most interested to see that Leona Quirky bottom lane, because I've never really seen that before, but they had a lot of success with it. So kudos to them for trying out a different support and having so much success with it. Okay, now coming up tomorrow we have the semifinals. So first semifinal of the day is the one that everybody really wants to see, Counter Logic Gaming against Moscow 5. They're definitely the two biggest favorites in the tournament right now. Most people seem to think whoever wins this will win the tournament. I'm not quite as sure of that because I think Against All Authority and Dignitas, the other two teams remaining, have also played quite well. But it should be very exciting. Two teams with humongous egos who both think that they're really hot stuff. So we will see who comes out on top. But it should be interesting. Very interesting to see. CLG is 6-1 in the tournament, and Moscow 5 is 5-0. So together a combined 11-1, and they've both looked really strong. The other semifinal, Against All Authority playing against Dignitas. So in both semifinals, we have one North American team against one European team. And again, should be fun stuff. I'm looking forward to catching some of them tomorrow. So anyway, gonna cut it off here. Relatively long, but I hope you guys who didn't have a chance to see it will enjoy this recap. Anyway, once again, thanks for listening, and I hope to be back tomorrow with a little bit more information on the semifinals of IEM Hannover.